briefing takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Event secure. Real time.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Tuesday. It's January the 12th. January the 12th, that's right. I don't have my watch on. I'm putting it on right now. Getting everything going right now. Just got out of the shower not too long ago, trying to get myself all together as we try to throw this show together kind of last minute. No, this is Tuesday. We have a lot of fun on Tuesday, and mostly because John Sapochetti joins us, and Mike gets the rest of his voice for the most part, but not so much this week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot for all three of us to talk about. And look, a lot's happened over the last 24 hours, certainly when it comes to stuff that both my co-hosts and I hold near and dear, and that's obviously the Patriots. So we're going to get into all that, and we're gonna talk about a pretty important anniversary. But before we do all that, I got to bring in my co-host, because I can't do the show by myself, because no one would listen. So without further ado, he is Mr. Rhode Island. He is Mr. Mike Debate. Mike, what's up, buddy?
La, la, la. I'm doing well, bud. I'm doing well. It's a Tuesday morning here, January 12th. Doing as well as can be expected, I guess, under all of the circumstances that the country has had to go through in the last 11, 12 days. But no, it's definitely good. And yes, there are some interesting developments, especially over the last 24 hours when it comes to the New England Patriots, but an awful lot still to come in the world of all professional sports. So new national champion has been crowned. It's really well. I don't know how new, Bama really is to being crowned national champions. It's kind of like almost a foregone conclusion at this point, at least every year, every other year. But it is. It's good. So let's kick it off, because I know John is chomping at the bit to join us this morning and regale us with some great entertainment. And I have to catch up on my sleep.
Yeah, of course. No, I do consider this like a half day for Mike for the most part sometimes, but that's not for not trying. I try, but sometimes, like last week, right off the bat, we kind of figured what the show was going to be about, but there is things that we do want to get into, obviously, surrounding Bill Belichick. We know that he was offered, or he was going to be presented with the Medal of Freedom award, one of the highest civilian distinctions, handed out by the current president, whoever that would be at the time. Obviously, something that shouldn't be taken lightly. However, I think, and a lot of people will agree, except for a very select few that have an agenda of their own, that Bill Belichick did the right thing. And this wasn't motivated by anything other than his own personal beliefs. And look, there were... I'm not going to sit here and name names. We're not going to name names. No, I can't help myself. It's always a Seinfeld reference there somewhere. But
Absolutely.
We're not going to sit here.
I'll name names. This is all Ned Isaacov's fault.
Yeah, that's right. You look like Trotsky. Good. I love that. Anyways, there was a select few, and it was obvious. I mean, anyone who has a fairly intimate knowledge of how the for the most part, I'm not trying to generalize everyone, but how the media works in Boston and everything, there was a select few that pretty much had their stories written already surrounding this topic. They knew what they were going to do. They're preemptively criticizing Bill Belichick for maybe accepting the award, when in reality, if you actually followed the team and didn't have an agenda, you knew there was no chance in hell. That's right. Vince McMahon. No chance. Well, actually, Vince might have accepted the honor. Let's not kid ourselves. But no, seriously, there was no chance in hell that Bill Belichick was going to do this. And if you even thought for a moment he was going to accept this award, again, it just shows that you have an agenda and you were hoping for that, because you had a hot story ready to go, ready to rip them apart, because we saw it in their tweets. You know what I mean? There's a difference between saying, you know what, I hope he doesn't accept this award, and saying, if he accepts this award, he's dead to me, and then going on and projecting what kind of anger you may have if he does that, because again, it just shows an agenda. And of course, what Bill Belichick did was exactly what I expected him to do, and that was to decline it. Because had he accepted that, had he gone to the White House, he would become one of the biggest hypocrites, and it would be a slap to the face to his players. And anyone who actually knows Belichick knows that that's the exact opposite of what he would do. And this isn't about image or a PR thing. No, this is just the character of the person. And yes, I know some people don't want to hear it. Oh, Bill Belichick, this big meanie. He talks mean to the press. Okay, whatever. Look at how some of the press handles Bill Belichick. So, look, I thought the statement he released was very appropriate, very respectful. Again, anyone who knows him knows he has a very high respect for the armed services. He obviously spent a significant amount of time at the Naval Academy as a kid with his dad. So he knows a lot, and anyone who's covered this team knows that he has a large amount of respect for the history of this country, and the sacrifices a lot of these veterans have made, all that stuff. I mean, there's no one that knows more about history in the league probably than Bill Belichick. I mean, that's who he is. So to believe that he would again just turn around and slap every single player in their face after the statements and the commitments that they've made this whole season, again, that just shows an agenda on your part, not so much Belichick's, because this to me was almost as obvious as a Pittsburgh Steelers loss in the wild card round.
I love how you can just turn it right into that. No, all kidding aside, folks, my colleague was extremely accurate and very eloquent this morning in the way he described that. Anyone who knows Bill Belichick and anyone who's covered him, who understands what is most important to this guy, knows that there was probably little to no chance that he was going to accept this award based on the temperature of the country right now and based upon his own beliefs as well. Look, I'm not going to sit there and put words into Bill Belichick's mouth. He did that. He put those words on the paper. And I don't want to hear this crap about active and passive voice because it's going to make me want to drive my head through plate glass. If you want to get upset with Belichick and you want to hate him, you'll be able to nitpick and you'll be able to just, absolutely delve into his statement and pick out something in there that you don't want to like. But at the same time, always consider the source and consider where it's coming from. And once you do, you'll realize that
they
opinion
literally
holds...
have spin in their name.
Exactly.
They're named after what they do. And,
exactly.
Sorry.
And no, it's true. I mean, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, look, the opportunity for Bill Belichick to be able to receive the Medal of Freedom, which is not anything that should be taken lightly, folks. I mean, that's not exactly just an also-ran type, this is not Publishers Clearinghouse that he won over here, that he's declining. I mean, this is a Medal of Freedom. It was established by President Kennedy in 1963. You said it, Ian. It's considered the highest honor a civilian can achieve in the United States. Individuals who have made exceptional contributions to the security or national interests of America, to world peace, or to cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. This is someone that served on the President's Council for Physical Fitness and Sports and Nutrition. So Bill Belichick has done, things that would warrant this type of award, and under normal circumstances, he would be receiving it. He would be appreciating it. He would be mostly praised. There would still be some that would probably still have a problem with it anyway.
The same exact people that are complaining now.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably. I'd say that's a safe bet. I'd say that's a safe bet. But when you look at Bill and you look at what the statement that he made, I thought his statement was excellent last night. I thought it was everything that it needed to be. I think that it showed true leadership. I think that it showed a reverence to the award. It didn't insult anyone, which this statement did not have to insult anyone to have an impact. I think it had the impact it was desired. The only thing this statement didn't do is feed into, like you said, the agenda-driven, sycophants out there that just wanted to hang on negativity, and they wanted Bill Belichick to deliver them that piece of negativity. When he didn't do it, all of a sudden the head you're rotating around and you're ready to vomit pea soup. That's not the way it works. You have to be, objective. You have to understand exactly what he did. Look at the statement. The statement was not double talk. It was not, questionably worded. I'm seeing a lot of this pop up, and it's not just from one source. I'm not attacking just one person here. I really, truly am not.
No,
but at the
several
same time,
morons out there.
yeah, at the same time, just use your eyes, use your common sense in terms of what the statement said. Take it for what it's worth. He did not go. It was the right decision. Bill Belichick was not coerced into this. Ian and I can tell you from the days that we've covered Bill Belichick doesn't get coerced into anything. If he believes strongly in something, he's going to do it. He didn't do this simply because, I don't want the public to be mad at me. He did it because he valued his players over himself. And to me, that's exactly what a coach does. A coach mentors. A coach gives you, sets an example. He doesn't just tell you X's and O's on the field. And that's something that I think Bill Belichick showed last night. True leadership. And I applaud him for his decision because it would be a slap in the face to so many players that wear that uniform and go through that locker room and put their safety and their health and well-being on the line each and every day to make sure that the team is in good shape. Bill Belichick definitely, I think he realized that. He owed it to his teammates, and I think he did it from his heart. I don't think this was something that came, with the proverbial gun to his head or whatever analogy you want to use. This was carefully worded, and I applaud him for that last night.
No, and look, you brought it up. I mean, these people were going to complain regardless. Whether he said yes, I mean, he could have issued a statement that said, I decline invite to WH from DJT for, essentially I resign from NYJ as HC, that whole deal. He could have done that. He would have been ripped for that. He puts out an eloquent, well-worded, thought-out statement to not only say why he declined. People ask, well, why? He doesn't say I decline. Just say I decline. No, he does. He goes into great detail. Not only again his reverence for the award in general, not because he got offered it by Trump. No, he's talking, like we said, about the historical significance of this award. That yes, maybe it has lost some of its luster because of the man in charge now, and that's perfectly reasonable. And I'm sure that doesn't change what the intent of it has been. And since again, like you mentioned, it was this is why you're great. You bring in it. You're great for a lot of reasons, Mike, but you brought in some more historical facts to the discussion here. And as people, if you didn't know before, it was instituted by President Kennedy. So again, this award isn't meant to be just like handed out haphazardly. It's supposed to be, a significant and well-deserved honor. And, and look, it takes a lot to decline that. And I think Bill did the right thing. I think a lot of people truly believed he would. Because again, if you know Bill Belichick, you would know him accepting and going to get this award would just, that might really, again, just be the biggest hypocritical thing. And the folks that are complaining about it, and I brought this up, before we got on the air, but, always got to bring it back to Seinfeld, Mike. This is like when Jake Jarmel didn't use the exclamation point and Elaine got pissed off because of it. It doesn't change the context of what was written. So-and-so had the baby. Great. Why didn't you use an exclamation point? This is essentially the same exact problem these people.
Well, maybe I just don't use my exclamation points as haphazardly as you do.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, anyways, it's Tuesday, which means, of course, Sapochetti is going to join us here shortly. We got off to a little bit late start, so it's going to be, just a few minutes before he hops on. But I do want to bring something else up because I'm sure we're going to talk to him about that as well, this whole Belichick situation. There's an anniversary today, and there's actually an anniversary yesterday that kind of folds into this. And obviously, there's about 3 things we talk about on the show. Sports. Well, sports is assumed. Let's skip that. 24, Seinfeld, and wrestling. That's essentially the foundation of the show outside of sports and throw in 80s music too. That's if you were going to ask us to describe the show in like 5 words, those are probably the 5 words that we would describe the show. But as Mike brought up to me prior to the show, and as I brought up to him after the fact, yesterday was the the 28th anniversary. I almost screwed that up. 28th anniversary of the first episode of Monday Night Raw. And today, Mike, it is, yes, that's right, the 28th anniversary of the most despicable act of cowardism ever recorded in history.
What a despicable act that was!
That's right. Marty Jannetty dove through a plate glass window 28 years ago today. It was something, Mike, and I'm so glad that I saw this, because this is an anniversary I would have been very upset to have missed, especially considering that I had the sound bites already in our catalog for this show. So
Absolutely. I mean, look, I wanted to be eloquent. I can't be. It's what a despicable act of cowardice. It was hilarious. And I mean, you saw it coming. Everybody knew the big split was happening. I remember being a young kid and watching the Rockers split up. And
I just knew he was going to do that.
That's right. See, Heenan knew. Heenan had a way of prognosticating the future. Heenan was the first one to call the Hogan turn. You see Hogan walking out in WCW Bash at the Beach, but what side is he on? He just, Bobby just was too excited. He couldn't sit on it. He just couldn't. He had to give a hint. He had to throw that out there to make him look like the that's why he was the brain. But no, great anniversaries, and Raw debuting was the other one, the Manhattan Center. Anybody goes back and looks at the early days, the first few episodes
1, 2, 3
of
kid,
Raw,
man.
absolutely, and then you go back. I mean, it looked like it was taking place in like an opera house. I mean, the Manhattan Center it's tiered. It really does. That's exactly what it looks like. And to see WWF wrestling in there was hilarious. But the two shots that were heard around the world for wrestling fans everywhere.
Jannetty tried to dive through the window to escape. Did you see that? Are you blind? What an act of cowardism.
Oh, I love it. I wish we could somehow resurrect those two and bring them back. But we have resurrected someone, and that is the resident old guy of the show. He joins us every Tuesday. That's right. He is Mr. John Sapochetti. John, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good morning, guys. I guess we're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. We'll go from wrestling to what? Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady again. I call for this, and I think that Mike would probably appreciate this. I'm calling for a ceasefire this week because Brady and Rodgers aren't facing each other this weekend. Hopefully next week they'll be preparing for the NFC Championship game.
No, I agree. I say we save that energy for then, because I think we can both sit here and root for that I think that's the best possible NFC Championship game. We can have. I mean, I don't want to hear about. I saw the Saints. I saw their offense last week. I mean, they won, but look. If I want an NFC Championship game, I want Tom Brady. I want Aaron Rodgers. I want the best two quarterbacks clearly in that conference, in my opinion. But no, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, John, and I agree. We'll have a ceasefire. Plus, I want Mike to actually talk this week. I don't want him to just sit on the sidelines. But we started this show, and not surprisingly, talking about what I expected was Bill Belichick's declining of receiving the Medal of Freedom. Not surprisingly, though, there is that contingent of media out there that we're going to have a problem with whatever he did, and we saw it. And again, it's the usual suspects putting their own quote unquote spin on the whole thing. I would imagine that you would agree that I think what Bill Belichick wrote, I think, was very eloquent, and I think very appropriate. And there's no hidden meaning to it. There's no failing to refuse. I think this was a very well thought out and well stated reason as to why he didn't go. And as I told Mike earlier in the show, to me it's exactly what I expected. Because if you believed he would do the opposite, makes me feel like you have an agenda against the guy, and that that it is what it is. But anyone who knows him, or at least even his harshest critic, couldn't sit there and seriously think that he was going to basically turn around and slap every single one of his players in the face.
If what happened last Wednesday didn't happen, he probably would have gone. You'd be tone deaf to show up to the White House a week after what we saw last Wednesday, although Gary Player and Sorenstam, the two golfers who are ardent Trump supporters, did show up. But again, they're not from the United States. And look, as great as they are at their craft, they're not quite Bill Belichick, certainly not as polarizing as Bill Belichick. We know that. And I think, I root for the story. The story of him going there would have been incredible, but we would have never seen it because they weren't going to release any video of it, any photographs of it. So it'd be done, under the cloak of darkness. He had to do this because, again, I think Belichick, from what we read this year, was all in with his players when it came to social justice. What happened with George Floyd back in May and it continued on throughout the summer. He supported his players. And, all things, whether you like or dislike Belichick, we all agree he's a pretty bright guy. Yeah. And he needed to do this. Now, I'm sure there's probably 8, 10, 12 members of the Patriots who are actually Trump supporters. The NFL locker room is a diverse group, right? You've got black players from the inner city. You've got black players from rural areas. You've got white guys from rural areas. I mean, plenty of white players in the NFL are Trump supporters. And there's some retired black players that are Trump supporters, one being Terrell Owens. So I think that, he had to handle this delicately. I don't think that the white players who are Trump supporters will be vocal that he's not going. Yeah. But the black players may have been vocal if he did go. So he made the right move here. And I think it was putting him in a very uncomfortable situation. And look, the thing I remember of Bill Belichick, and no one's brought this up, in 2004, he supported John Kerry. He's not a political guy. In fact, when I was at the Herald in 2016, some of our reporters did exhaustive work, and he did not even vote in 2016. So I don't think he's a political guy. I think he's friends with Donald Trump, which is cool. Robert Kraft's friends with Donald Trump. That's cool because
a lot of celebrities were too before all of this.
And a lot of people forget. They loved him. Every rapper loved Donald Trump, until he decided to run for president and of course, have these racial overtones that he certainly displays. So, I'll go way back in history. Harry Truman, who's one of our greatest presidents, I believe when he was in the Senate, he was pretty close with what they used to call them ward bosses in like Kansas City and in a lot of the old cities. There was some mob connections there. And the ward boss in a certain district died. And Truman was told not to go to the man's wake and funeral. And Truman said, I don't care. He's my friend. That's a sign of loyalty. And it wouldn't have surprised me if Belichick went because he thinks Donald Trump is his friend. He wants to be loyal to him. But I think he's smart enough to understand that the backlash would have been extreme. And he may have lost some of the members. Down the road, you're trying to go after free agent players who may look and say, well, the money's the same in New England as it is somewhere else. Do I really want to go through playing with Bill Belichick? That's not the easiest thing. They don't have the quarterback they had for 20 years. And, oh, by the way, he's a Trump supporter. So, that he's a bright guy. And I think he made the right decision.
Yeah. And look, I don't believe as much as some people do that look, and I've said it already. I mean, there's plenty of celebrities now that are, on the front lines of being anti-Trump, and you can never talk to Trump, blah, 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 that were, hand in hand with the guy not too long ago. So when he was just kind of a joke in Hollywood and on TV and everything like that, So I think people can change, their opinions of people surely based on the actions of those people. And I almost, obviously, I don't know Bill personally, but I imagine that his opinion of Trump, I don't know what it was prior to all this. Obviously, they were on somewhat friendly terms. He was friendly with Robert Kraft, which, look, I'm not blaming Robert Kraft for that. I mean, he's a billionaire. These billionaires, they flock together. That's what it is. I mean, it's not, it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean, Robert Kraft was, sitting side by side with Trump while he described all his, sexual assaults. That's just that's people make that connection, and it's not appropriate. So I'm not blaming them for that, especially in 2016, 2015, what have you. People change, and there's a lot of people that have changed their opinion of Trump since then. And I think Bill's probably one of them. And I also think that, again, his level of respect and admiration just for the country, I think would have, maybe prior to what happened on Wednesday, would have made him go more so than maybe his relationship with Trump. But we know how it would have been displayed. It would have been, he's doing this for Trump. He's a supporter of Trump, which, as you mentioned, isn't necessarily the case. It's like the people who say, oh, well, Robert Kraft is a big Trump guy. Well, he donated to his inauguration. And as you probably know, John, Robert Kraft is one of the more Democratic-leaning donors and of all the NFL owners. So, again, how narratives are. They don't necessarily need to be rooted in truth. It just, as long as you say it enough, people will believe it. And I kind of think that's what people generally do with the Patriots, and in this case with Kraft and Belichick and Brady, formerly of the Patriots, obviously, when it comes to Trump. And like I said, I feel like even had this not happened on Wednesday, perhaps Bill goes. But again, I think it would be more so, and you heard it in his statement, because he does respect the award. Maybe not the guy giving it, but he respects the honor. He respects the people prior to him that have received it. And I think that to him is the bigger honor of anything, not going and getting a medal from his buddy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So to me, this was an obvious outcome, because, as much as I don't know him personally, I know Belichick enough to know that this was the move that he was going to make and why he was going to make it. And I think it was the best move because, like you said, John, I think you risk much more in alienating the people that are against Trump than you are the people that are for him. Because even after Wednesday, some of the biggest Trump supporters in the world are, sitting there saying like, okay, like, how much more can I just put on, ignore from him? You know what I mean? And some of the actions that have occurred, obviously, over the past week has changed that. So,
yeah, I mean, the child eventually and finally burned down the house. If you have a child and they continually do things that just make you, bang your head against the wall, and of course you still love them because they're your child, but they go so far. I mean, I would have jumped off this. Going back to what he had to say about John McCain back in 2015, that was enough for me to say this guy's unhinged. But I don't know. We don't like to talk politics, but I will say this: I'm going to give you another layup, Ian.
Okay.
For your man Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady could come out and say, "I can't go to the White House to receive this award. I'm getting ready for a playoff game," and Bill's not.
Well, in Tom's defense, when the Patriots won the Super Bowl in 2018, he did not go to the White House. Although people again. And look, I think no one talks about Drew Brees. Okay, remember what happened at the beginning of the season? You probably don't, because no one talks about it. But people still talk
Brees
about...
is much more polarizing when it comes to politics. I mean, I'm assuming Drew Brees is a supporter of Donald Trump, and so is Sean Payton. Sean Payton said the biggest honor in his life was meeting George W. Bush. They're both, Republicans, which is their choice. I support them. I just don't like Sean Payton because of the way he acts on the sideline. And then I think they were playing the Atlanta Falcons after the Falcons lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots. And he was like, in the face of Matt Ryan saying, great way to close that game out. It's just like, dude, you've won one Super Bowl. That's great. You're not, you're not Bill Parcells. You're not Bill Belichick. I don't really like the Saints, and I'll be rooting for the Buccaneers on Sunday. Of course, if the Packers ever lose Saturday night, I may not watch football ever again. So
you may not ever come on the show ever again.
I may never come on the show again, and I am damn worried about this game. I really am, because at first I'm like, great, the Rams, they should be able to handle them. A Southern California team going to Lambeau in 12 degrees with a quarterback with a broken thumb. But that Ram defense is for real. We essentially have the best offense in football, the highest scoring offense in football in Green Bay against the best defense, the lowest scoring defense in football in the Rams. This would be a great matchup. As is often the case in those matchups, what the Packers defense does against the Rams offense may decide the game. But I think we're all rooting for Tom and Aaron to face off at Lambeau in about 11 days.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. And look, and that's the thing to that point, going back to the Saints, it's like, everyone again will never forget that for one day, Tom Brady in 2015 had a "Make America Great" hat, and then they'll sit there and bring up pictures of when he was 22 years old, sitting with Donald Trump at a Miss America. It's like, what 22-year-old in 2001 wouldn't sit there and be like, oh my God, I'm sitting at a Miss America pageant with Donald Trump. Like, oh, this is the guy from Home Alone 2, you know? So, like, people are bringing this up like it happened last week and that he continues to do this. So, you know, Tom obviously decided not to go. I think, you know, maybe in the past, he was obviously more of a friend. Just like I said, just like any other one of these celebrities out there that were hobnobbing with him prior to all this, and now have obviously turned on him. And that's, again, that's their choice, and I think it's the right choice given who he's turned out to be. But you know the agenda's there when all people do is bring that up, and like I said, there hasn't been a peep about Drew Brees, you know, and this happened 6 months ago. So, hey, Mike, what's up, buddy?
Hey, yes, I'm still here. Absolutely, yeah. No, all kidding aside, John, I thought you hit the nail on the head, and Ian, you kind of touched upon this a little bit as well. You know, I'm not in that Belichick inner sanctum, but I have talked to people that are close to the team, that are close to Bill. And I can tell you that the meetings that he's had with his players this year had a profound effect on him. And it made him see things in a different light. Now, does that change his opinion, his personal opinion of the president, both as a president and as a human being? I definitely couldn't speak to that. I wouldn't even pretend to try. But one thing I can tell you is that he knows the pulse of that locker room. That is the most important thing. And Ian and I talked about this before you joined us, John. Bill Belichick, like you said, knows the value of having and holding on to his locker room. And he really does believe the things that he does. It's not a situation where he's being coerced into something. I think he's cognitive of the pulse and the temperature of the nation. I think that factored into his decision, but he's not being coerced into this. And I think a lot of people need to be reminded of that. This is a guy that does dance to the beat of his own drum. If he felt extremely strongly about it and really felt that this was an opportunity for him to do something big, maybe he might have given it more consideration. I think he put the pulse of his players and the pulse of the team, being able to, like you said, recruit free agents, bring people in. That's something that Bill Belichick values above all else. It's always the team first. And that's exactly what he did last night. And that's exactly what I saw and read in that statement. So I do understand. I do believe that. John, I also appreciate that you'll be rooting for the Buccaneers this weekend. Ian and I are definitely happy to hear that. And I, for one, am looking forward to an Aaron and Tom showdown. And oh boy, I hope we get it. I really and truly hope we get it. But you're right not to sleep on the Rams. I've been doing some research on this team, watching a lot of film. And this is a legit defense. Since they played the Patriots, I've really become more of a student of the way this Rams team plays defense. And boy, that's a tough unit. That is going to be a tough unit to crack.
And
the amazing thing is the Jets beat the Rams. Yeah. The Jets have their 2 wins over 2 playoff teams that won last weekend, the Rams and Cleveland Browns, which has got to be one of the oddities of 2020. I just think that, again, Aaron Donald has some issues with rib cartilage, which that's not going to be helpful for him, hopefully helpful for the Green Bay Packers. I just don't think a team going from Southern California to Lambeau is that easy, although the Rams are a pretty physical team. So, you know, sometimes you look at a team, okay, they're a Southern California team. They're going to, you know, not be able to function in the cold weather. But, you know, again, the quarterback disparity is great between Rodgers and Jared Goff. The rest of the rosters, I would say the Rams probably have a better roster than Green Bay outside of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And look, I mean, that's the biggest factor. Even if Jared Goff was healthy, I think you obviously still lean towards the Packers. But there is, you know, you got to look at how the Rams have been playing in the most recent weeks, and that's what alarms you if you're a Packers fan. So it worries you. I don't want to say alarms because, again, I still think, despite all the advantages the Rams may have, I think the Packers should and will win this game. But it's not going to be a walk in the park. I mean, this team, even with limited Jared Goff, I think that the biggest, like you said, the biggest factor for them is and always will be their defense. And they do have talent on the other side of the ball, too. It's not like they're devoid of that. So, you know, if we can, if we're lucky, that's what we're going to get, though. We're going to get the Bucks and the Packers. And, yeah, it'll be good. And what's the chance you give? How much of a chance, John, do you give the Cleveland Browns after they embarrassed, to my great joy, embarrassed the Pittsburgh Steelers this past weekend? How much of a chance do you give them against Kansas City Chiefs and, according to some, Jesus on the football field.
Jesus on the football field. I like that. Actually, the oldest quarterback left in the AFC playoffs, Patrick Mahomes, which is another bad sign for the Patriots, right? The 4 remaining quarterbacks in the AFC are all, 25 and younger, and the Patriots haven't solved that position, not even close to it yet. Look, if Patrick Mahomes throws 4 interceptions like Ben Roethlisberger, and if the opening play of the game is a snap over Mahomes' head, and Mahomes decides not to dive on it, and the Browns dive on it and score a touchdown 6 seconds into the game, then they have a chance. The Browns can run the football, and that's going to be one way to try to keep Mahomes off the field, which is all well and good, except we know how quick strike that the Kansas City Chiefs are. I think the Chiefs are going to absolutely blow them out, because I think that was like their Super Bowl, beating the Steelers. They went into Pittsburgh, a place they never win. They beat the Steelers in the playoffs. They did it with, Kevin Stefanski locked up in his basement like every other Cleveland Browns fan. And I think that, they've done what they had to do. Not that they're going to show up and not compete against the Kansas City Chiefs, but I think the week off for Kansas City helps. We know how Andy Reid is in terms of coming off of bye weeks. I would think Kansas City will roll in this. But again, if Cleveland establishes that run game and again scores touchdowns, not field goals, then they do have a puncher's chance. And again, all these games, guys, come down to turnovers, right? I'm even thinking of the Packers and Rams turnovers. If the Packers win the turnover battle, which they generally do, they should be fine. The problem is if Aaron throws 2 interceptions, which can happen with Jalen Ramsey out there in the secondary, and that's really good pass rush. And if Goff takes care of the football, the Rams probably win that game. It will come down to turnovers, and that's not really earth-shattering analysis. But I think Kansas City should be fine against the Cleveland Browns, because I think it's going to be tough for Cleveland after back-to-back games against Pittsburgh to, come back that third week and do it again. Although, don't count them out. They're a talented team, but they do have deficiencies in that secondary that I think Mahomes will expose.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is like we saw Pittsburgh. Now again, Pittsburgh, certainly has talent on the offense. I mean, I think we can agree that the quarterback's probably, I think he's done. We saw a huge drop off from his play the last half of the season, and again in the playoffs it wasn't good. But they do have talent, they do have receivers, but obviously Kansas City's receivers and skill players are on a different level right now. And that was the problem they were having was keeping them in check, especially after they jumped up 28-0. And yeah, you can chalk that up to, okay, you go up 28-0, naturally most teams are going to take their foot off the gas a little bit, but again, like you said, you can't do that against Kansas City. So do they have a chance? Sure. Do I think the Ravens had a much better chance of knocking them off? Absolutely. In fact, I probably think the Ravens probably beat them if they play in the divisional round, because for all the things working in the Chiefs' favor against the Chiefs, I think it's the exact opposite against the Ravens, and that would have been a bad. That's not the case. They get to go to Buffalo. Rematch. Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I think you nailed it there. I think I still we just had a little bit of a technical malfunction there, but I think that Baltimore is a team that's peaking at the right time. Lamar Jackson, what he does with his legs is incredible. He's getting better all the time as a thrower of the football, except for that interception was a disaster. At the time, it looked like it was just going to snowball into a Tennessee Titans win. And you look at the Titans defense being that bad, and Baltimore only put 20 points on the board. Buffalo's defense is not really all that great, but look, Josh Allen's playing at a high level. That probably is, the 2 most interesting games this weekend will probably be Baltimore at Buffalo, because you've got the 2 great young quarterbacks, different styles, playing in Buffalo with a few fans there. It's going to be crazy. And obviously the Saints and Buccaneers, matchup number 3 of this season. So those are going to be fun games to watch. But I just want to bring up one more thing about Roethlisberger, maybe hear from Mike on this. He's going to have to come back though, right? Because if he's going to have a $41 million cap hit against the Steelers, which is like 20% of the cap. So he may have to come back. Do you think he'll be a little better next year, a year after surgery? We hear that all the time, when it comes to knees, that the player, the year after surgery is better. What about the quarterback having his elbow reconstructed? Maybe he's better next year and he goes out that way. Because I can't see him retiring, turning down all that money, and the Steelers probably going to try to coax him into playing, because they're going to have to pay him and have a salary cap hit to boot.
Yeah, John, that's an excellent question. I've been getting that a little bit between Locked On and people that, following the Steelers. And for some reason, there's a synergy between some Steelers fans and Patriots fans that I had no idea was actually there until these last couple of days. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, cancel those reservations. That's what I think of when I think of the Steelers and the Patriots fan base, at least in the modern era. But apparently there is still some, deep-rooted fans up here in this region back when the Patriots were just also ran. You kind of had to have a backup team, and I guess a lot of people utilized the Steelers in that fashion. Look, $41.25 million as a salary for next year for Ben is just an enormous number. And it's difficult for them to be able to get out from underneath it. So you're absolutely right. They're going to have to coax him back in. And unless, he decides to retire, that'd probably be the only scenario in which they'd be able to get any type of a relief from that. And even then, they're still going to be on the hook for a lot. It's going to be interesting to see if he does come back, if he's able to recapture some of that ability that he showed in the early part of the season. Ben looked pretty good to open the season, and a lot of people were wondering, well, maybe he's motivated. Maybe he came back in and he's ready to go. He started to break down toward the season's end, and we saw basically a shell of what Ben Roethlisberger used to be in this game over the weekend. I'm looking at him right now and saying if he does, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think Pittsburgh ultimately would love to be able to, rid themselves and move in a different direction. But I think it's going to be hard to do this year. Pittsburgh faces an interesting offseason. They may have one of the more interesting and intriguing quarterback conundrums on their hands, maybe even more so than right up here in New England. So stay tuned. That's a good question, though.
Yeah, and I with Ben, I don't know if he's at a point in his career. We all know that he's not, he's certainly not Tom Brady when it comes to taking care of yourself. And he's 38 years old. This isn't a guy who's 30 years old who can maybe come back. And I don't think it's going to get much better. I'm kind of with Mike here. We saw him look really good at the beginning of the season. And then, as is the case a lot with these older players, again, say for Tom Brady, the second half tends to be a bit of a drop off because, your body's older, it starts to break down, and that energy you had at the beginning of the season just isn't there. Couple that with all the hits you take over the course of the season, and naturally you're going to fall off. And I think that's what we're seeing from Ben, not so much a struggle to get back from an injury. So we'll see. But yeah, that's $41 million. That's a hefty contract to be burdened with next year. So if you're the Steelers, if you're Ben, well, hey, that's $41 million in the bank. So far less contentious today. This was actually very pleasant. It felt like we were just sitting around drinking tea, being very respectful today, and Mike got to speak. Maybe that's the reason Mike was involved. So it was far more.
I wore the gi for nothing. I was ready to. I was ready for the fight. I was ready for the big.
Mike. Yep. You wear the gi every day. Don't lie.
Well, maybe I do. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So don't pretend like this is the only reason why you're wearing the
Mercy
gi.
Is for the weak.
Yeah. Yeah. If this was the only reason, you'd be taking it off after this, and I guarantee you, when you go to have lunch today, you'll be wearing that gi. So tomorrow is Wednesday, which means we're inching closer, ever so close, to divisional round weekend, which should be a whole hell of a lot of fun. And yes, folks, next week, perhaps one way or the other, it will be it'll be a little bit more tense on the show with John, unless both the Bucks and the Packers lose, and then we might just talk about Seinfeld and the greatest actor and Daniel Day-Lewis and all that. Maybe we'll do that because at that point, what do? We can't even insult each other with any sort of energy. So. So, folks, yeah, definitely tune in for that. Mike and I will be back tomorrow. We're going to really start to get into more of the game action coming up this weekend. And, of course, for the rest of the week, we'll be doing that. And maybe we'll talk a little bit of hockey, who drops the puck here tomorrow night. Folks, that reminds me, if you're not already, go over to Full Press NHL, at Full Press NHL on Twitter, and check out the pinned tweet. We're giving away a jersey for free. For free, folks. So just follow the instructions on the tweet, enter the contest, and we will announce a winner tomorrow, 13th. So, right? Yeah, tomorrow's the 13th. I gotta check my dates a little bit better. So until then, have a great day, folks. Stay tuned. Snowman in the Morning's coming up later today. Dylan and Ross Save Sports. We're going to have a fun little bet going on with them because, as we know, Dylan and Ross, they're Drew Brees fans. They're Saints fans. So there's going to be a little fun interaction going on for the rest of the week between the two of us. And, just anything to make them feel better knowing that this is that last week that Drew Brees will ever play football. So, folks, have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.